whenever you want.
All right, so I want to say thank you once again. For those of you that are already club members, we're going to walk you through all of the wines that are coming in your fall shipment here at the end of September, early October. For those of you not club members yet, we're going to walk you through all the wines coming in the fall shipment at the end of September, early October. And if you've not yet experienced remote or virtual tastings yet, one of the great things about this winery when it comes to being a club member as well is we can set up these kind of tastings as the wines arrive at your home. We can walk you through this and do a remote tasting for you as well. So I cannot thank you enough for being club members and continuing to show your enthusiasm. It should be a fun flight for us today. So sit back, relax, and watch us drink 7 bottles of wine. We're gonna chat for a few minutes before we start tasting wine, but I need some wine immediately while we chat. So,
what's the topic today?
The topic today is awesomeness.
Yes.
Yes.
You exude that.
Well, it's been a burden most of my life. It's tough. I think I've learned to live with it pretty well, though. You just kind of accept it and run with it. And today, for those of you that aren't club members at Elyse, I'm pointing at you directly right now. It's time for you to stop messing around and get involved. Elyse as a winery, has always been kind of the easy to come to, easy to understand, easy to drink kind of winery and wines, and they've always kind of prided themselves on good value and good wine, and we've always kind of taken that message and run with it. But as the club has grown in enthusiasm, those of you that are already members, I'm pointing both fingers at you because you are awesomeness. That's exactly what we're referring to today. But some of the wines that we're starting to produce here at Elyse are being absorbed completely by our club now. We don't necessarily make a series of wines that we would call club-only wines, but some of the production for some of the smaller vineyards we work with is certainly getting us to the point when we can only sort of offer it to the club. So if there is a carrot to be dangled out there in a winery, it's really for us, it's the nature of getting to some of these smaller production fun wines. One of the great things about working with this group of people is that no matter how successful a wine is, we are driven by the land and the vineyard and the winemaking, and there's never going to be a case of us taking a successful wine. Pinot Blanc being a good example, the Le Corbeau we'll talk about during the flight today, and going, how much more of this can we make to just keep selling more and more of it? We go, this is what the vineyard gave us, it's a finite amount, move on with your life onto the next love affair. So I always really highly respected that without kind of pushing the envelope. There's nothing worse than discovering a great wine at a winery that's a very small production wine and you fall in love with it. Next thing you know, they make 100,000 cases of it and it turns to absolute crap. And so I love keeping things small. First wine out of the gates today is going to be an absolute crusher for those of you getting these. So the whole flight today that we're doing, this is the Elyse Wine Club shipment for September of 2020. We're still in 2020, aren't we? The thing about Chardonnay, once again, is, oh my God, winemaker's grape. You can do anything to this grape. You can leave it in steel and make it high acid. You can put it in oak. You can make it really rich and buttery. You can make it lean. It really is a winemaker's grape in terms of what can be done with it. Our 18 Chardonnay right now is going to be sort of gone down in history as the greatest Chardonnay Elyse has ever produced. We took a lot of the same vineyard sources and applied a little bit of the French oak kind of in-barrel fermentation style to it, and this is just rich and gorgeous. Mm-hmm. But don't get caught up on the fact that we're saying oak. This is not a super oaky Chardonnay, man. It really has
it's like 30 to 40% new French oak. A lot of love goes into picking out those barrels. Russell is super detail-oriented when it comes to his barrel program for each individual wine. Everything is dealt with separately, but with the richness of the oak that is here with the Chardonnay, I'm amazed just by the hint of the greenness in the color, which is a great thing, and there's a beautiful tartness to balance the richness of the wine, so it just screams balance.
Actually, I still think that's one of the highest compliments you can ever pay a wine. Is that's the real achievement. It's like a chef going, what do you mean you didn't like the dish? You tried one thing and then you shuffled it over to that side of your plate. And I put everything on your plate together for a reason. You're supposed to try it all together. This Chardonnay walks one of the finest lines for me in that I don't usually like my Chardonnays cold. Mm-hmm. I really do start to drink more and more Chardonnay kind of at closer to red wine temperatures. This thing has satisfied me as much as a chilled Chardonnay as it does as it grows in kind of power and depth as it warms up a little bit. Really clean flavors.
Yeah.
I mean, pure, fresh, clean, juicy Chardonnay. It's okay to come back into the Chardonnay waters, man. You know, I truly confess that I'm drinking more and more Chardonnay again these days.
And the colder it is, the more it's gonna resemble not Sauvignon Blanc totally, but more on that crisp, clean side. And then the more it warms up, you're gonna get more aromatics, more of the stone fruit that's in there. Oak will come through a little bit, but it's just a beautifully balanced wine. We, speaking about temperatures, we've had a lot of variant temperatures in the last 3 weeks. So sometimes when we're doing all our tastings outside, we're actually putting the wines in a regular refrigerator. It's almost 48 degrees, but over the course of 5 to 7 minutes, that temperature in that wine is going to warm up to almost room temperature. And so it's kind of a fun experiment we found. It wasn't something we were planning on doing, but it allows people to see what their sweet spot is for temperature. And I think this Chardonnay will show that greatly. And I love them ice cold.
Well, there you go.
Super refreshing.
I really do. I'm a big fan of this wine. 2018 as a vintage was kind of a welcome relief for us. You know, we had a really horrible 17 with some pretty brutal fires. 18 brought rain and some really mellow temperatures, and it was a beautiful year. We had a lot of fun making wine in 18. For those of you watching, God, I cannot thank you enough for all of your outpourings of emails and concerns for us. I love to hear from you. Our club members going, man, I just want to be sure you guys are okay. You know, when you watch the news and watch Napa, we're just this horrific ring of fire yet again. And God, the acreage that's burned this year is huge, man. And we're still blanketed with smoke over the valley. It certainly cleared up a little bit over the days. But the spirit of a lot of the guys working in the vineyards and in the cellar, you know, the thing about the wine business is the vineyard, we just keep rolling forward, man. It's just something about the agriculture has its own timing, and it really did kind of keep us grounded while all the insanity was going on around us.
And speaking of the fires, definitely our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody up in the hills, because those are the ones that really had to deal with the fires. In the kind of the valleys of Sonoma and Napa, we didn't luckily experience all of that. And there's been a couple smoky days, but for anybody looking to visit, it is gorgeous outside and honestly, has been. We've got, you know, whether it's us or whatever wineries you go to, don't cancel those plans to come visit, because we've got delicious wine and the weather is
Please,
gorgeous.
God, come. We can't talk to each other anymore. I mean, you've got to come visit us, man. All right. So when you join the Elyse Wine Club, you're going to get 6 wines shipped twice a year, or 12, depending on your enthusiasm. There's always an option to go reds only. So we start with the Chardonnay, but for your reds only, we'll show you kind of the sub-in wine if you want to go all reds. Elyse built its whole reputation on Zinfandel. We're going to be playing around with 2 Zins today from 2 different vintages. Some of the enthusiasm out there has moved through quite a bit of the wine, and the club members have really been voracious. And so we've kind of skipped ahead on a vintage for the Dry Creek for the next shipment. Today, our first Zin out of the gates is going to be the 16 Morasoli Zinfandel.
And thank you to everyone, whether you're members or just on our email list, which I would encourage everybody to join, even if you've never purchased wine from us. Cheryl's done an amazing job putting together these special little packages, whether they're vineyard designate wines to be able to explore different vineyards, or, you know, some library wines where you're getting amazing deals with in the past 6 bottles or a case purchase. Now she's still got these amazing case deals. So definitely look through the website, pay attention to those emails, because we've blown through all of our 13, 14, 15 Zinfandels, so hence why 16 and 17s are coming out now.
At some point, and I promise you by our next show, I'll have a better handle on this. I want to start numbering the vintages off of Morasoli. So if we started the first one, let's say 87 was the first verified Morasoli, although I think there's an 86 that
85 really, and 86 uncommercial, non-commercial.
They just drank them, they didn't release them.
Yeah.
So let's say 85 was the first one. Who's got quick math? Is that
35
30
years?
Is that 35 years?
Yep.
30. So this would be 35 years would be 2020. So this year would be the 35th vintage off of these old vines.
And so 2 unofficial first vintages of Elyse.
Correct.
Yes. The 2016, I got to tell you,
it's gorgeous.
Zinfandel, oh my God, it is trapped in this great area between Pinot Noir and big powerhouse Zinfandels. Creating a balanced Zinfandel, I think, is a really brave move, because everybody that looks at red Zin on the shelf, there was an era where everybody was pushing higher and denser and darker and sweeter and just kind of going in this really kind of intense direction with the grape. It's been really funny to watch little by little a lot of winemakers and growers kind of come back to this. What I would call, I mean, if I'm going to introduce somebody to California Zinfandel, this is as classic a style as I've ever seen. And Zinfandel, God, it brings a lot of terroir to the equation. I put it second only to Pinot Noir for one of the most sensitive grapes reflecting the site where it's grown. It really does show off its terroir.
And the skins will tell you that. Pinot Noir, one of the thinnest skin grape varieties. Zinfandel's not far off with just a little thicker skin, but that's why you don't get as much of that tannin.
It's really funny. It's the mid-palate of this wine that makes me the happiest. It is just, it's got this great balance to it. You're going to get that whole family of, I think we decided rhubarb was the flavor that kind of jumped
rhubarb,
to the forefront,
red fruit,
you know?
Raspberries, red plum.
But this
cherry.
is definitely a good, fun, foodie Zinfandel. This has got charcuterie written all over it. I can go my smoked salmon with this. You know, I can really have fun with the range on this. Sometimes acidity in a wine, to me, is always going to suggest food. So with some wines, I think, like the Chardonnay for me, I can pair it all day long, but I love drinking it on its own. I just love that moment of a pure glass of wine. Whereas this Morosoli Zin, every sip I take is immediately evoking, like, what kind of food do I want with this? What, you know, this time of year in California, the sweet beets that we get, man, you roast off some beets, a little touch of red wine vinegar and goat cheese.
Maybe a little bit of bitter green with it.
Absolutely. I love the beet greens. I take the tops off and use those as kind of the almost like collard greens under my beets kind of thing.
I like there's just, I mean, fruit definitely first, but like this teeny little underlying caramelized apple almost.
Absolutely.
And the oak is very minimal on these wines. Talk about a little balance, I think, back then of American and French, but really 30% new French oak. So it's definitely not this big, huge oaky.
Yeah, you guys come see us at the winery. We'll show you the slow transition from American oak to French oak in some of these programs. It really makes for an interesting study in wine. And the great thing about wine is there's no right and wrong there. It's just kind of like it's our home cooking. It's kind of the style that we prefer. And American oak can sometimes be very intrusive. It can be, not to criticize it as an industry, I'm just saying it can be very strong, powerful flavor that announces itself in a lot of wines. And the subtlety that they put together in 2016, with only about a third of this being new barrels, really integrates in the wine well. You don't get a huge oak presence in this wine as a major component when you're drinking it. And 2016, I mean, there it is. We're 4 years in. 5 years is usually the magic number for a lot of the Elyse wines in terms of when they really hit their balance point. I'm finding this 16 to be really ready to rock and roll today. And that's the other thing about the club is, you know, I think as a combination of wines that we ship you, there's always going to be a collection that are impatient wines for guys like me that I can drink right away. And there's going to be several of the wines that'll be in those shipments that'll make you think, okay, I had one of these, I tried it. As I acquire another 6 of those or 12 of those for my house, I start to develop my own style of, I might lay that down for a few years. I might open that a couple hours before I enjoy it at dinner. And so giving you the opportunity to put your own timeline together, how to enjoy the wines, is always important to us, for sure.
And I'm impressed with our team, with Cheryl and Melissa and Josh, to always put together a super thoughtful 6 bottles. You're getting one of everything. They're all going to be awesome. 4 of them might rise to the top, and those you want to reorder, because a lot of these are 150, 200, max like 300 case productions. So the wine club pretty much takes them all. But it is a really fun way to do it, and just get a variety pack, and then you go from there. We always offer that customizable wine club shipment. But I'd say, God, 75% of our members just stick with this and double it up and say, well, give me 2 bottles of each of those.
Customizable, man. Yeah. Well, okay, so we're all wine drinkers. We've joined clubs ourselves in the past. One of the things that always amazed me is you join a wine club, and the first thing you get is this list of rules. You're allowed to do this. You can't do that. You can get so much of this. You know what? Forget all that. You're a club member, man. You're the most important people in a winery.
Yeah.
And so the customizable part of this is just, if that's what you love, then guess what? Why don't you make 6 Zins your club shipment? Like, man, we will literally bend over backwards to make sure that you're getting what you want. And that is a big step for a wine club. A lot of clubs I know can sometimes use their wine club members as this big offloading ground for wine that's no longer in play, and I hate it when they do that.
What a way to treat your most valued customers.
Thank you. You know, part of the conversations we often have here at Elyse are, it's not necessarily always driving like, what are we doing to get new members? We are, but that's just out of sheer charm. What we're talking about is, what are we doing to for the people that already love us? And I think it's a really big part of what makes this club successful is continually reinvesting in the people that already love you and trying to make sure they're continually happy with what they get and how they get it and when they get it. And so we're always conscious of that. You know, one of the things that we continue to do is all of the wines that we really have in the flight here, less some of the much smaller production. Think about magnums for the holidays too, man. These Zinfandels, you already know you're gonna drink too. Don't pretend. So opening magnums for the holidays and plunking those bad boys on the table has always been fun for me. I love being the guy walking into the room for the holidays going, bam, I brought the wine tonight. You know, we just got the 2 bottles, but they're both 3 liters. How you doing?
Yeah, that'll keep us busy for an hour.
Yeah. Now we're doing Hatfields and McCoys. So we went from Morrisoli's in, which, by the way, the average age of the vine on that Morrisoli is about 100 to 105 years old. We're moving into the Dry Creek Zin over in Sonoma, the Dry Creek area. Epic for Zinfandel. Probably planted to grapes in some cases earlier than Napa, especially to Zinfandel.
Yeah.
It was certainly one of those survivable grapes in terms of it's hot on one side of Dry Creek, it's ocean on the other. The Zinfandel responded really well to both. So the Carreras and Ramazzotis over there, you're looking at 105-year-old average on these as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
up to like 120, 125.
That's old, man, you know? And yet these vines have continued to produce amazing flavors. And we're going to talk about it, but you really have to come and visit us this year, early in the spring next year. By spring next year, I guarantee I'll start pulling barrel samples because I have zero patience. We're really blessed to be working with St. Peter's Church this year, which is up in Cloverdale. This is a 150-year-old vineyard. I cannot wait to see the grapes this year out of this site.
Was that the longest contiguously farmed?
Pretty sure. Yes, you in the back. You have a question?
So what are some of the differences between old vine Zinfandel and current or young vine Zinfandel?
I think usually about $20.
Definitely the price that we pay for it. But yield is down considerably the older you go. But then with you getting much less fruit, sometimes less than a ton of fruit per acre with these old vines, the concentration of the fruit is impeccable. Also with younger vines, with Zinfandel vines especially, they'll have on the same cluster some perfectly ripe berries, some grossly underripe berries, and then some overripe raisinated berries, all on the same cluster. What do they call that? Is that the chicks and hens?
Hens and chicks have to do with the size of the 2 grapes in general, but yes.
Okay, so that's chicks and hens all on one cluster, whereas the older vines, you get much less production, but you get more uniformity within ripening.
Yeah, it's really funny to watch a vine learn where it's growing. It goes through a learning curve. The young vines are still thinking propagation. They want to grow to the biggest plant they can possibly grow. And they learn pretty quickly that they're not going to be getting snack time. They're not going to be having these gigantic dinners. We're going to keep them pretty lean. And so in the first couple of years, the vine's trying to push all of its energy into as much of the outputs as it can. As the time goes by, it really learns to conserve that energy and focus just on the fruit. And so you really watch a vine kind of go through its learning curve. Every year a vine is in the ground, it's going to dig deeper into the soil looking for water and nutrients because we kind of deprive it of that above ground. And so some of these 100-year-old vines, I mean, this center taproot is 100 feet down into the soil. So the big difference as well is the complexity, is the more information that vine is collecting from a much wider kind of vine root kind of area covered. You're going to collect a lot more information and create a little more complexity and more flavors in the grapes. And I will tell you honestly, the thing about old vines that's great, you don't have to do a lot.
Yeah.
The vine already kind of self-regulates its growth. It really is. There's no guide wires in the old head prune vineyards. There's no sprinkler systems. They're almost 100% dry farmed in some of these old plots. And so it's I'm not taking away from you guys at Ramazzotti Carreras. I'm not saying what you do is backbreaking in art. I'm just saying some of the engineered vineyards that require a lot more tinkering and tucking of canes in between guide wires and hedging and pruning and pulling laterals and all this other stuff you can do. These old Zen vineyards really kind of got it figured out, and they just roll along with their lives.
Can they see behind you? I don't know if you guys can see that, but here's a little example of some old vines.
These are called
head prune vines on the Morrisoli vineyard. So we started with that 16 Morrisoli. I would imagine that the Dry Creek vineyards that we work with have vines that look similar to that. More like an orchard than what we've come to know as your lined rows of vineyard.
The Dry Creek for me is also much spicier than the Morrisoli. There's a bit of a more of a rocky heat factor to the terrain over in the Dry Creek there. And when I say spicy, I'm not talking about heat like, Tapatio or Cholula hot sauce kind of thing. It's spicy in terms of all of the factors that are hitting your palate are, in addition to the red fruit, I'm getting the cracked pepper. I'm getting a lot of these components that are in addition to the fruit flavors. And so when we talk about a spicy Zinfandel, that's often what we're referring to.
And this 17, much more than the 13, 14s that I had, definitely more red fruit driven, whereas before I would get, and I think that was just a 17 kind of vintage, but beautiful complexity, spice, that pepper he's talking about, but not as dark fruit oriented as previous vintages have been for Elyse.
Well,
shall we?
As we say in my house, what's next?
Oh, is it the Hosfelds and the McCoys?
Oh yeah. What's up, Hosfeld? How you doing, man? Huh? You've had a rough couple of years yourself on that hillside, man. That's been. The poor Hosfeld Vineyard is right at the front gates of those inaccessible canyons where a lot of the wind and the fires have been at their worst.
But luckily, their buildings, their newly rebuilt house from the fires of 17 survived this year's fires, and so did their vine. So
this is the last vintage from Hosfeld
for
us for
Correct.
now until the replant.
Maybe 2023, but they have other vineyards that we don't access that were unaffected by the 17
fires. So if you're
fires.
as big a fan of this vineyard as we are, this would be the year to maybe think about some of the verticals that are still available and lay some of this into the house. It'll be a few years while we all kind of hug and weep a little bit about not being able to drink this particular Merlot for the years to come. But
we have very little of the 15 left, but we're actively pouring it for tastings that come to see us. But 13, 14, 15, whatever will be left of the 16, I don't imagine much is going to be left.
all available in Magnum.
They're
A
all
convenient
available
2-bottle carrying size.
So pretty amazing if you get a magnum of each, let's say. So there's 4 magnums, 13, 14, 15, and 16, 5. But then get a case of 750s to kind of match them. So you always have something to pull out. If you've got 6 people there, go with a magnum.
It's a big Merlot.
It's juicy. This fits the description of 2016 for me.
This has got some grip to it too. I mean, this is a, and you always hear about steak and Cabernet. This Merlot could stand up to the biggest tomahawk, man. It really does have a lot going on.
That's delicious.
Oh man, it really is in a great mood today too.
So this is beautiful, much bigger, more pronounced. I'd say it's more similar to the 14, but even richer, more full-bodied. I think this is outstanding.
Yeah, the acidity on the finish is certainly lending me to believe that this has got a good 10, 20 years in the cellar legs on it. It's really been funny to watch the evolution of some of the Merlot vineyards in Napa as becoming some of the great sought-after plots. I mean, if you look at the mountaintops in Napa, the very top of Howe Mountain is Keys Ranch Merlot, and Chris Carpenter there at La Joda is making a pretty serious wine from that. I call it pretty serious, not actually a serious wine yet, Carpenter. Keep working, man. Keep plugging away. I know, man. He'll get the hang of it eventually. And then you got Bancroft Ranch from Behringer up there. The top of Spring Mountain is Pride and Paloma. Three Palms and the volcanic rocks north of St. Helena.
And the Hosfelds.
And the Hosfelds, I mean, it is just some of the most epic locations. Blanquier is right here in Yountville for their Merlot. You put it in the right location, you can really develop a pretty compelling wine around this. If I left anyone out, don't get all twisted in a knot. Just swing by the winery, bring us some of your wine, and I guarantee we'll work it into the conversation, man, you know?
Yeah, that actually works sometimes. We've had people bring some amazing stuff.
Don't forget about me.
I love him planting the seed because we had somebody bring in '85 to early '90s, like impeccable wineries, and we're like, oh yeah, we can grab
Brother
some
Mike,
of our
if you're
old.
watching out there, man,
Thank you,
that
Mike.
was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
I hear he's making a glorious return soon.
Oh, sweet. So this Hausfeld Merlot, I think, will please 95% of the palates out there.
Right.
If you're looking for some austere, underripe, right bank Bordeaux Merlot, this isn't it.
Yeah.
But this is extremely balanced, but with plenty of fruit up front, little kind of cocoa powder, and even little cola.
What about the other 5%? What's wrong with that, man?
Well, they have different palates. They could,
Whatever, man.
Nobody's
Get over yourself,
everybody's palates are right for them. So this suits 95% of all palates out there,
Yeah, and that's it sometimes.
and it does ship in pallets.
When we're,
doesn't it?
when we're pouring wine for guests sometimes, the perception of taking a sip of wine, one small sip, going, I don't think I like this, or, this might be my favorite wine ever. It's amazing to me to watch how fast somebody wants to develop that moment with their wine. Sometimes it's like, hey, man, I need a
down and
stepping
relax
stone
with
too.
it.
Like, yeah, relax, take that third sip. Sometimes you think about a wine like this that's, it's not the big bad hillside Cabernet, but man, I drink this. It's like stretching out first before I get to those. You need another red wine to work your way through those food and wine pairing courses for sure. So don't ever overlook Merlot, man. I don't care what anybody tells you.
Have you come here, I might just blind you on 5 Hausfeld Merlots in a row.
Right.
And you'll be trying to say no, and they're like, God, I love every one of these. What is this?
I'm telling you, man, that is just delicious today. I really like the finish on
I
the
don't
Merlot today.
recall maybe ever having this
Lucia
wine.
and the gang, family, thanks.
Haley, Lucia.
Oh my God, you guys rock. All right, so when it comes to challenges, the 18 Les Corbeaux is going to be one of those wines that you are going to have a lot of fun playing with, because your first sip of this wine is going to be like, whoa, like what did you just put in a bottle, man? Syrah, if it's grown right and if it's grown in the right location, this is the kind of thing that nobody's on the fence about. You're either going to absolutely love this wine or you're absolutely not. Color, depth, spice, complexity. This is everything you want.
For all those vegans out there that don't eat meat, this is a substitute. So you're going to get all the gaminess and black pepper, white pepper, meat driven. So you can have your teriyaki glaze grilled portobello
good call.
with this, and this will provide the meat.
Tell stories about going in the woods and killing the portobello and sleeping inside of it before you hike it out of the woods.
Oh, totally. You got to stay warm.
Or is that the porcini? I always get that confused, man.
No, you eat the porcinis. You sleep under the portobellos.
And we're not recommending you pick any mushroom in the woods, by the way. that's just not an awesome way to go about it, man.
This is your impossible burger.
Oh man,
That might be
again.
the first time that artificial meat has been used in a tasting note.
Totally. Well, it's so popular. I figured there's plenty of palates that can relate.
Look, we did a blind tasting with my kids and some of the neighborhood kids. And they were all over at the house, and we cut up the cheeseburgers into little quarters, and we put them on these platters and said, try A,
Did the
B, or
blind
C.
tasting, nice.
And the Impossible Burger was almost hands down the kids' favorite. Without telling them what it was, without making a big deal about it.
Cool.
I was impressed. The quality of those. So currently my favorite is Gott's Impossible Burger with the hatch green chilies on it, man. That is absolutely my go-to right now. And I can see this wine rocking with that. Syrah lends itself to a wide array of pairings and flavors. And for me, Syrah has always been about lamb. There's something about the inherent kind of garrigue, for lack of a better word, in lamb that's got its own inherent spice to it. And Syrah kind of keeps pace with all those chapters. Yes, you in the back.
Why don't you say what garrigue is for the general population?
Garrigue?
Yes.
You go for it.
It is a collection of resinous herbs that often occur in the wines of the Rhone Valley.
Huh.
So that infamous like sage and rosemary and thyme and lavenders and all these other herbs that react to the heat.
So I always call those herbs de Provence.
Well, again, that's a very same concept, but
Fiends
the flavor
herbs.
that they would describe those herbs de Provence, and the wine was known as garrigue.
Awesome.
Yeah.
See?
Good grow, man. Good
Yeah,
grow.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thanks for setting me up. Stuff I don't know.
And what does Les Corbeaux mean, sir?
Oh, I think what Oh, if I could
if you
remember
can't figure out what to call it, always say something
remember
fancy.
the author that wrote The Raven.
Right?
But that is
Is it
what
right with
means.
Kipling?
Again, I don't know. Are we talking Keplinger? No.
Ellen, what's up? And again, this Syrah, we tried this, what was it? A couple of days ago, we were doing tasting notes on this. And it was, the acidity was there, the tannins were there, the spice was there. Today, it has really knitted together. The fruit is really dense coming out of this. And it's dark fruit, but it is more almost like berry-driven fruit. You're picturing almost like I'm eating the pluot almost. It's like a black plum that's got this
blues and
zing
blacks.
of acid. Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid of Syrah. The biggest thing with Syrah, I think, as a varietal is it's very rarely going to come out of the gates as soon as it's released as a, oh my God, I'm fully in balance, ready to be drunk all by itself. Most Syrah is really going to be driven as a food companion wine. It's got some dryness to it. It's got some power to it. And that often really melds really well with dishes and food. A lot of people love to go the charcuterie route with Syrah. You can go a million directions with bresaola and prosciutto and dry salami and the finocchioni, the little fennel-driven salamis. And if you've ever worked on the crush pad here with us, known as the meat stick from the Cajano brothers? What are they?
Oh, yeah.
What's it?
Cataneo.
Oh, that's the beef jerky?
Oh,
That
my
is
God,
so
these
good.
guys rock. If you're watching up there, guys, thank you very much for the... I'm not going to say thank you for your meat stick. I'm not doing that.
I think you already did.
Okay.
Sorry about that. This is, to me, this is like one of the most beautiful examples of like cornasse or cote roti.
Nice.
It is that gamey, meaty, peppery. It's obviously California, so the fruit dominates even more, but it's so balanced between fruit and meaty, gamey flavors. It's
really funny, even though we're having
a fun blind
it's
tasting.
really floral today,
and the
too.
acid is really good, better than I realize it.
There's a very lavender kind of feeling right on your soft palate when this wine finishes right now. That's really interesting, man.
Yeah, if I'm blind tasting Syrah, Petite Syrah, which there is just a tiny bit of Petite Syrah.
Syrah.
We're talking like 5 to...
Sometimes for us, the Petite Syrah adds a little bit of almost like a bookend. It adds like just a little bit of like cymbals crashing at the end. I just need to build a little crescendo at the end. Syrah can bring...
Super valuable.
Sometimes the finish with Syrah can miss a few notes in the symphony, and so adding a little Petite Syrah can just round all that out and make sure the music finish is strong. God, I love this wine.
If I'm blind tasting, there's 3 things that make me think purple: Syrah, Petite Syrah, and Petit Verdot. And this has 2 of those 3, predominantly Syrah, but I just think purple. And that lavender you're talking about, the violets, so that floral nature, but then also the color, everything just screams it. I think this is an amazing wine.
Rudy, if you're out there watching, man, this is all for you, buddy. This is 18 Syrah. I know. You're going to wait 10 years before you drink it because you're more patient than we are.
We did this with him in one of the TV shows, right?
So,
we did 18 in like 08 or something.
It was so rough when we did it for that show.
This wine has evolved beautifully.
But this has got duck breast written all over it for me, whereas because of the balance and that little kind of floral nature. One of the great tricks, Napa lavender grows beautifully up here, is you take all your lavender and you cut it when the flowers are just freshly purple. And you lay all those lavender stems on a cookie sheet and put the grill over it, the little screen like the drying rack for cookies. And you put the duck on top of the rack.
So you're getting
put that whole thing in the oven. The
aromatics.
lavender liquefies and turns into like a little steam and smoke, and it permeates the duck. So when you're cutting into it, you get this really beautiful lavender aroma to your duck breast.
Interesting. I was talking to somebody who was mentioning lavender and then letting the herbs dry, and once they're dry, you can actually kind of use it as sage and kind of burn the incense. Sure. I know people that put it under their pillows in these little sachets for calmness.
Well, and also in the culinary world, you can take, almost like a truffle, you can take the lavender, crush it up and put it in your dairy, and then strain it back out, and then make like your flan or make your whipped cream with it.
Wow.
And you get this really beautiful aroma in your whipped cream.
Well done, Grant. It's a total team affair here at Elyse.
It's all fun and games till you get to the Cabernet.
Legal affairs.
Look at that, 17.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we're still a week away from the start of football. He's still short-arming things, but We'll get there. And that was his power, strong arm left. So he
Absolutely, man.
he's still
well, all I could picture
spring
was me
training.
crashing into the,
I would have
the
dove.
other three.
I would have dove.
Yeah. And by the way, anybody that orders 12 Magnums from us, you are allowed to bring the empties back to the winery, and we'll show you how to bowl on the crush pad. It's the funnest thing ever. Frozen turkey bowling with empty Magnums is never stops being fun ever. So
We'll have Bo bring you beers.
Elyse Vineyard Cabernet. This is a 2017. It's really fun to have your own little patch to play with out back here at the winery, because we work with a lot of farmers and we're always engaged in the conversation dynamics of understanding their ranch, how they farm, how we're going to integrate some of our requirements into their kind of ranch. Watching our guys be able to really kind of tweak and play with our vineyard on its own. And this is a really spectacular sided Cabernet. A lot of people that have tried this wine have immediately echoed Martha's Vineyard in terms of a stylistic wine.
Oh, yeah.
It's deep, it's rich, it's powerful, it's got the acidity for long-term aging. We certainly have a stand of eucalyptus trees next to the property, and anybody that tries to tell you that a eucalyptus tree will not have an effect in the vineyard does not know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It is a very distinctive element in the wine, and I was not normally a fan of this style of Cabernet. This has really grown on me. I'm really loving this.
Yeah, and it's definitely a different thing with Cabernet. Underripe Cabernet, you get the pyrazines. That's that bell pepper. That's pyrazine. Eucalyptus, totally different. We got, I mean, it's that menthol. Whether that screams mint. In this case, I know we kind of.
Well, we are going into the cold and flu season.
Chocolate mint, yeah. Just take a little of
Rub
this,
on
rub on your chest, right under the nose. Yeah, I think we got some chocolate mint here, just doing the tasting notes the other
thing
day.
about where our Cabernet vineyard is sited here in Yountville, behind the winery, is it's not up in the mountains. It's not all the way on the valley floor. It's at this little kind of 7 to 9% grade as all the water kind of drains towards the Napa River. But from where the little knoll is, where we're located, a lot of clay has compacted over the years. And by having water inherently available in the soil, you're going to get like a 1 millimeter larger Cabernet grape, which softens those tannins. So there's a velvet texture to this wine that I very much enjoy.
Yeah.
Once again, going back to my impatience, meaning that it can show its balance point for a guy like me very early on in its life.
Well, I think this wine too, one, it's young, right? This is a young 17 cab, but definitely benefits from some oxygen. So you get that decanter, even a half hour goes a long way, because this bottle was Corvin, so it was never opened. But I still think a little oxygen got in there, and from when we did tasting notes on this wine 3 days ago, it was delicious then. But I think even the mid palate and the body has grown and filled out just in that little oxygen that it was given.
I would love to throw that challenge out there for you clubbers. As these wines arrive and you start opening, could you please send us some of your tasting notes? We sit around and we bang through these wines and we write what we think are really accurate descriptions of what we're sensing and what we're smelling and what we're tasting and experiencing in the wines. But most of our real enjoyment in this game is to hear all walks of life and what they're experiencing in the wine and what they're smelling. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes you can send us one of your descriptors and we'll all look at each other going, that's what that is.
Yeah,
we
totally.
could not figure that out the other day. So we super love to hear from you and hear your thoughts about the wines.
And food pairings, if you find this, family recipe that just pairs beautifully with, any of our wines, let us know.
Yeah.
We've got our chef friends, Chloe, one of them, that she'd be happy to whip up your recipe and give you a shout out.
This has almost got I'm almost picturing when you get those, that almost
more like a
Moroccan
pita Euro
food, when
type
they
of.
caramelize the bell peppers. There's this kind of sweet pepper, kind of almost red bell pepper nature coming right off of this wine. That's making me picture that as a garnish on a like again a steak, or if you're going to go pure vegetables, it would work with that whole family of chanterelles and.
Yeah, if you can get some kind of American tacos with your steak, your peppers, and all of that, but without
Lentils
the
almost,
habanero or jalapeno salsa, so get rid of that heat. Sorry, all right. We've been informed that we are at 45 minutes, probably 47 now. So let's move on.
Yeah, you tried tasting 7 wines.
Delicious. There's only
minutes,
an acre and a half of Cabernet, so we barely have any of this wine. So I hope you guys pick something else, because then I can sell it or drink
the light
it.
of day beyond the club for sure. What do we have here?
And now, for our last trick, the 2000. Oh, can I make it? Oh no, I was gonna keep that there.
See if you could. You got to learn how to. If you hit it just off the end of the club, you can learn to do the controlled draw. Or
In golf, I mean, those trees really help keep me in the fairway.
Oh, by the way, heard the man had a tap-in eagle the other day on a golf course.
Yeah,
man,
only my second ever. Thank you,
We got a
Elyse
couple
Winery.
of sharks on the staff here, so when it comes to the charity golf tournament, you better watch out for the Elyse team, man.
Ooh, don't invite us, because we'll all watch Nick. Birdie, birdie, birdie.
Mommy, is that good? Morasoli Cabernet, again, if you picture the location, there was an old river for centuries that ran through that section of Napa. And so the next door neighbor vineyard, Tejan, is right on the rocks where the bottom of the river was. Morasoli is kind of the rockier bank of the river, and then you move up to the J.J. Cone property that's even higher up. Now you move beyond the dirt and the soil and up into more of the bedrock up there. So you really get a sense of that whole terrain. So Morasoli is in that perfect little slope. It's in that really great kind of small of the back, man. That little perfect little slope.
Yeah, even in wet years, water's going in the soil, but a lot of it's just running down towards Highway 29. So it gets kind of what it needs, but it doesn't get more than what it wants. And so we can kind of keep that stress level somewhat high for it, so the complexities are, and this is complex as any 17 cab I've had.
If there was one contribution we made to this wine, when we first stepped in here at Elyse, the 17s had already been processed. They were already in barrel. So all the oak decisions had been made. The wine had been harvested and produced and fully fermented. So we come along after it's been in barrel for about a year and tasted the barrels, and we're just like, wow, that's amazing. We didn't have to do a ton to this wine. But you will see as the years go by that we've employed a little bit different oak regimen on Morasoli, because we're going to find a flavor in a vineyard like Morasoli that we love, and the dense dark fruit that's available along with the acidity that allows it to age for so long. We've really focused on that darker fruit element at Morasoli, and the 17s and 18s that are really kind of rolling out right now are just
the 19s
blow
in
you
barrel
away, man.
are just crazy.
19 was a fun one to make. That's when we really got to stretch our legs a little bit, and we got some little more modern equipment to play with, and sorted through a little bit more of the fruit and purified the vineyard a touch more. And Chris Morasoli stepped up and has really taken over more and more and more with his dad Gary, the farming boys, gentlemen.
And also thank you to Chris Morasoli and all of the firefighters from near and far. I mean, they're volunteers, and they're going out like front lines and digging their whatever they call those barriers, fire breaks. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's good today.
It is so good. So we just went through 3 days ago. We went Elyse Vineyard, Morasoli, and then Tejan, which is kind of this secret little gem. Don't ask about it. We'll probably say no. Just joking. We can't say no. That's the rules here.
I got 2 words when it comes to Tejan. Springtime.
Oh, I thought you were going to say sold out.
No, man. The Tejan's going to make its real appearance back from its whirlwind trip since 2011. The Tejan will be coming back to your club in the spring of 2021.
What I was going to say, all 3 of them, this was more of the chocolate mint, so where the chocolate came from, but with the Morasoli and the Tejan, chocolate plays a part. Not like it's this big milk chocolate kind of thing, but little dust of cocoa over the red and, little bit of black fruit. But this Morasoli, everything's just tasting amazing today. Wish you could be here. So come and visit.
Those of you that are already members, thank you. Well done. Your wine is we're going to fire it off to you towards the end of the month, late September, early October. Those of you that haven't evolved yet to our level and are club members yet, there's still time to be awesome.
It's a low bar to evolve above.
But seriously, if you go to the Elyse website, the dynamics are really fun to play with. The path to purchase is easy to use. The club sign up is as simple as it could possibly get. And you can already engage, and you could almost customize your own first shipment right out of the gates, man. You don't have to wait, Find out what you love. Come play with us. We're here, man. We are. The light's lit. The door's open. We're here,
Yeah, we're here every day. So if you're not going to be here drinking with us, we will be forced to drink with each other.
So thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon on the next
Look
one.
forward to
man.
seeing you guys soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.